Welcome to Alternatives to AA. This is Joshua Robinson, and I've been 3 years sober.
And I'm Monique Robinson, and I'm 2 years sober. And we're here on a mission to help make the difficult journey of sobriety even easier to manage. Nobody in my world ever thought that I'd actually manage to be sober. So now we're taking what we've learned in the last decade to be able to help you too.
And we're not against AA. We just need to learn how to manage the other 23 hours of the day. From communication to relationships to self-care, we're going to show you how to cope when your triggers try to take you down.
Join us every Monday at 6 p.m. to uncover not only how to live without alcohol, but to thrive in sobriety and to swap out your addiction for a better life with the help of Alternatives to AA. So let's go.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Alternatives to AA. We're going to talk about boundaries and their importance in sobriety.
Yeah, definitely. So boundaries are very important in regards to sobriety. And there's two specific boundaries that we really want to talk to you guys about today. There's one that you place on yourself, and there's the boundaries that you put up for people in your life.
Yeah. And one of the main benefits of putting up proper boundaries is the safety of your own well-being. Mm-hmm. It's possible to put up so many boundaries that's like a hindrance, but generally speaking, most people, especially in this day and age, probably have an issue with not putting up enough boundaries because they're trying to be the nice person, mm-hmm. And so all that kind of stuff, just accepting whatever somebody says or does can hurt you,
Absolutely.
So yeah, important. So boundaries are so important for that reason. So more often than not, the problem with boundaries is they're not concrete or there are no boundaries at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, some people that are in this situation, like if you come from a narcissistic or a like a abusive household, you might not even think you have the right to have boundaries or have the right to even maintain boundaries. But that's where a lot of people fall into this trap. There are no boundaries in these households for a reason, because the abuser has complete and total control of your mind, body, and soul. And they use it and abuse it in any way they want to. And if this is what you experienced growing up, we're really sorry, because there's nothing worse than trauma going through that kind of stuff. And having to cope with it as an adult and try to understand, like, that was not your fault and you did nothing wrong. So,
yeah, that's a big part of it. Thinking that you did something wrong, mm-hmm. and were you the narcissist? Because sometimes, you might eventually, if someone pushes you and abuses you enough, you might say, fuck you, or you might say. You might yell at them. You're going to eventually, everyone has a certain point, a breaking point. And then, of course, then they use that and say, oh, you're a bad person, this or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I went through this like a couple months ago with setting up my own boundaries. It's actually like, it's a hard thing. It's probably one of the hardest things I ever did. So, yeah, it's just, after doing it, my anxiety got a lot lower, mm-hmm. And it's still something that's very upsetting because, you have to take people out of your life that have been a part of your life for a long time, and it can hurt a lot, but it's something that long term is going to benefit you. So like short term, it might seem like, oh, maybe this isn't worth it to set up these boundaries. Mm-hmm. But, I have support from Monique and other people. And, now I feel way more in control of my life, which is good. It still hurts, right? Like, I guess for me, it was like a codependency thing, mm-hmm. thinking about it now, with my mom. And I had to stop talking to her. Don't know if she'll ever listen to this, but that would be interesting. Mm-hmm. But it was just me and, I since a early age, I kind of had to like It's kind of weird, but kind of like take care of my mom in a lot of ways. And I wasn't able to really like be a kid myself, so
Yeah, you had to parent the parent.
Yeah, so that was upsetting. So I didn't really get to have a childhood, but you know, we're about to have kids, so we can experience that through our kids in some ways. So yeah, this is like a really good podcast because it's a really important one, but it's a really hard one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so also, you know, by cutting my mom off and just saying like I'm done for good, I'd done it like usually 2 or 3 months, and then I'd go back. She'd say everything's gonna be better, like, and then it just wouldn't last. You know, it lasts a couple days, a week, or something. But yeah, like, so since doing this, like, my thinking's a lot clearer. You know, I'm going to school and like all these other things. And, you know, I honestly didn't think it was going to be this hard to talk about this, but it really is. It's a really hard one.
Well, I mean, especially for Josh, you know, like, it's his mom. It's someone who's been in his life for 34 years. It's someone you want to rely on. But that's where, again, these boundaries are so important to talk about, because even some of the hardest ones are the most important ones for you to put up boundaries with. I've even had to do it with people who used to take advantage of me a little bit more. I've just had to say no. And there's been a little bit of pushback, but fortunately for me, the people I'm talking about have accepted it and decided to change with me. But unfortunately for Josh, that was not the case. So you do have to decide, like, if this person listens to my boundaries, you can keep them in your life. If they do not, then you take a break. You know, whether it be permanent or temporary, you do take a break. I know with my intense drinking, there was people who even had to put up boundaries with me. One of my best friends worked with me for a long time, and I always thought I kept missing them at the at the clock. We call it the punch clock. And it turned out they were asking someone else to punch them out because they were so afraid to see me, because I was literally dying in front of their eyes with how bad my addiction was at the time. And they didn't tell me this until I was a little over a year sober. And it was kind of just like, even that was a revelation. But, like, you know, people do put up boundaries for you too. And I was willing to accept that boundary, like, you know, because she had to do it to keep her sanity. Whereas, like, you know, I just kind of was like rolling with it at the time. But I'm proud of that person for doing that, because it was hurting them so badly to see me that destructive that they took it upon themselves to be like, no, I can't do this. Here's my boundary. So it's the same thing with Josh. It's just, it's a much more intense relationship. So the boundaries, that's why we wanted to bring it up to you guys today. The importance of boundaries can make or break your sobriety. So we really wanted to discuss that and give you pointers if we could, and tell you everybody going through this does struggle with it at some point or another.
Yeah.
It's part of you growing and healing through the process.
It's definitely like self-love at its highest.
It really is. It doesn't feel like it at times, because, like Josh said, it's very painful even to talk about it now.
Feel like a jerk. Feel like I'm
right.
Feel like I'm being like a bad son or something like this. This is the feelings that are going through my head. But I know it's not true, because I just can't deal with it anymore. And in regards to like my mind being clear, it's just not thinking about what all like the things that could possibly happen. Like growing up is you know, and even when I was older, still Just like, well, my mom would make situations like dramatic on purpose just so I would come and help out or whatever. And it's just so exhausting. And I just, we have a baby on the way. I'm trying to do a podcast, trying to get stronger at the gym, trying to pursue my degree, starting most likely helping at Open Door in Flemington. So like all these things, it's like that's so much. I literally can't, if I wanted to, like still have that relationship.
I mean, and even talking about that, like in the past couple months, because he has said no, now the phone ringing or like getting a text message, sometimes if it was like a week or so in between like drama incidences is what I'll like to call it, he would start to flinch if the phone rang or if he got a text message or something. And I haven't seen you do that in a while. So like your anxiety's down, which in turn has made my anxiety go down.
No, it's like so weird though. Like I don't know if my mom is going to watch this or not. And, I still care about my mom, obviously.
Of course.
But yeah, this is like giving me crazy anxiety because I'm like, oh, is she going to like see that I'm telling the truth about certain things or whatever? But it's definitely what's needed. And also with my dad, I did the same thing recently. He was kind of actually, I'm just going to tell it all. Who cares? He was, trying to come over here and kind of tell me, oh, you need to go help mom. You need to help her out. She's sad. And, and trying to also like say I said certain things that I didn't to try to confuse me and all this. And so that went on for like an hour. But then I, by just consistently saying no, like when he was trying to, I guess, bait me with certain things, he finally stopped trying to do that and actually started listening to me and what happened. And now me and him are just like on a same level, instead of it being like, oh, he's my dad, like I'll do whatever for him. And that's really what has to happen. A lot of times it doesn't happen for people unless their dad dies, but their dad has to die, at least like metaphorically, for you to become the man that you have to be. And like, so these are all like really raw for me, but it's great because now there's more responsibility on me, but it's good.
And it's responsibility you choose, not responsibility that gets thrown on you. And like, again, that's another boundary too, like choosing which responsibilities you do want to tackle. Like for you, I would say that's school, weightlifting, taking care of me and our baby, like stuff like that. Whereas like sometimes we would get a phone call and, we don't live next door by any means. We live, like half hour, 40 minutes away. And we would be asked to rush over in an emergent situation when really it was just somebody was fighting with somebody. It wasn't something that needed to be so intense and dramatic. And it gave us both a lot of anxiety, much more you, obviously, but like because of Josh's having anxiety, I would have anxiety from it, and worry about it because it would affect him.
And I just didn't want anything like, I was just trying to, protect the nieces or whoever needed protecting, but, because
that's what you do best.
What?
Protecting.
I try. But yeah, so it was just a lot, and it's still really raw, but I thought that we should talk about it when it's still raw. And like I keep saying, like talking about it is actually like it's still hard. It's not, I mean, think about it. If you have a relationship with somebody for like 34 years, and then you kind of like, let's say, break up, right? It's a breakup of sorts. Doesn't mean it's like romantic, but
Right.
And you know, you're not gonna get over that in a couple months. It still hurts, like
No.
so. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a lot, and I wish it only took like a couple months, but I'm sure it'll probably take like more than a year or so. But still, it's something that has to be done. It's not like you have to go through this pain, or you're gonna go through like way worse for the rest of your life, and you're not actually gonna be your own person. And I don't know. To me, that sounds a little scary.
Yeah, and you know, it could sound scary to you guys too, but that's, again, like Josh said, we wanted to do this podcast when it was the most raw, these things going on, so you could see like how it truly affects us, so that way you know you're not alone. Because all the tools that we're trying to give you guys, they're not easy. You know, there's so many parts about getting sober that are not easy. And if you're listening to this, if you're thinking about it, or if you are sober, you know the struggle. You know the impact it has on yourself. And we just want you to know you're not alone. Like, I mean, Josh is 4 years sober. I'm almost 3 years sober. And we're still learning different things. And we want to learn with you guys, so you guys understand that this isn't something you can fix in a couple months, even necessarily a couple years. You're constantly working on yourself, but in that way, you're giving yourself the greatest self-love you will ever experience, which therefore translates to more confidence and more ability to say no to the bottle or your drug of choice. Having self-love and confidence are really the key factors. But to do that, you need to do a bunch of little things to give yourself that stuff. Not artificial confidence, because I know we both experienced artificial confidence with drinking. We'd think we were more fun or more sexy or more like loose, like, you know, whatever. But it was artificial. It wasn't real. And now we experience the real confidence and the real, you know, different things. You know, we still struggle with it. We obviously still have anxiety, but we're much better equipped to deal with it these days, I would say.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that goes back to the not questioning like what could happen, because if we don't set any boundaries with somebody, they could do whatever to you whenever, right?
Yep.
So you have to be constantly thinking all day about every single thing, and you know, it can help you later in life by seeing certain patterns in people and stuff like that, but you know, it's not a really good way to live, because it's just really exhausting.
So at this point, you know, we've talked a lot already, but you're probably wondering, what steps can you take to set up your boundaries in a way that can take control for your mind and body and spirit?
Yeah, the first step for setting up these boundaries for what you want your like hopes and dreams to be, you want to create a life that, you know, you're able to survive and thrive. If certain people don't respect these new boundaries, then, you know, they don't respect you as a person, and you should limit time with them, as they're taking away your energy. You know, they're just zapping you of energy that you need for your dreams. I mean, you surround yourself with those people and it's not going to be good, so you got to surround yourself with people that actually respect your new boundaries. And the ones that don't, you know, it's best to cut them off, because if you don't, you're just dragging this dead weight, right? It's like you got like 200 pounds strapped to your back. And you're like, but I love it, you know, it's a bunch of gold or something.
Yeah.
But, you know,
It's
you
really
don't
just a
need
bunch
it.
of rocks.
It's just a bunch of crap
Yeah.
that you literally don't need, but you think that it's valuable. So just cut that off. Just cut those people off. And you'll be able to start running towards your dreams instead of just slowly grinding towards them, if anything, because you're just weighed down.
Mm-hmm.
So, this can be hard if it's like a relative or a friend.
Absolutely.
Like I said before, that, that's like what happened with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts a lot. Like Jordan Peterson kind of described this as, burning the dead weight, burning like the dead wood or whatever that's inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And, it could be a lot of you. And then you might think, oh, I don't have much left, but that's actually what's good, and the rest was just like holding you back, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
So it's a really intense process.
Mm-hmm.
But the benefit is insane. Like, it's like night and day when you start to respect yourself.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, with that being said, it's reminding me of how they burn wood in a dead forest to leave room for growth for new plants and new trees and everything like that. That's exactly what it reminds me of. And in a lot of ways, that's even been going on with you. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but obviously his weightlifting has exploded.
Oh, yeah.
He's been able to, lift more and do more. And there's been a lot of stuff we've been doing around the house in preparation for the baby, and he's just been able to really focus and help me through that. And just, there's been a lot of ways where, yes, it's hurt, but it's improved our lives. And that is such an important thing to tell you guys. So. And
also, I don't think we would be good parents if we didn't do this beforehand. Because you have to be your own person to be a good parent. You can't have your mom or dad saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their kid,
Yeah.
And it's something that needed to happen, so I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't fun. So maybe if, it didn't have to happen, I'd put it off. So because these things are just so intense, it's the same thing when you get sober because you literally think you're gonna die or something like that.
Yeah. A part of you does die because, if you, especially like me, I staked claim in being fun when I would drink and being like I talked about before, I would be looser, so my anxiety was down, I would be fun, but the truth was, I'd be that person for about an hour or two, and then I turned nasty.
Yeah.
But, I was able to lie to myself to such a degree in addiction, it's incredible. And now I can't do that.
Yeah, everything is more real.
Yeah.
And so...
Hold on,
that's okay.
They can't hear you in the mic.
No, they can.
Oh.
So everything is more real, so, sometimes the bad can seem worse, but then the good seems a lot better too. So
absolutely,
it's just a more full life. You actually get to experience these emotions that you maybe didn't experience for 10 years.
Yeah.
And when they're coming up, you're like, oh crap, you get scared about it at first because you're like, what's this?
Mm-hmm. How do I cope with this?
Yeah, you almost forget about it.
Yeah.
But no, it's just such a better way to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So at this point, I think we've made it pretty clear, but you might be wondering why boundaries are so important to getting and staying sober. Without boundaries, there's no freedom. That is something that we have learned in this process. The more boundaries we've set, the more we've had control, so the freer we have felt.
Yes.
So it doesn't feel like it. It should translate that way, because you think boundaries, you're blocking things and stuff, but the truth is you're blocking what isn't necessary in your life and giving yourself more room to grow for what you believe is necessary in your life and moving forward in a better direction. So that's just been amazing for me, for both of us, really.
Yeah.
as of late to kind of really, really start to embrace that, like, we are free to make our choices kind of thing. But an example that we came up with is, for example, if you have a car. If anybody could just borrow it without asking, and they could just drive it into the ocean or take it away forever, doesn't sound like fun. And there's no freedom in that. I mean, you could lose your car at any second. Now, we want you to think about that. Replace car with your body or your mind. Think of the trauma that can take place in that scenario. If somebody literally has control over your body or your mind, a lot of times with what we're talking about, it's through the mind. It's terrifying to think of someone have total control of you, like they're a puppet master and just, pulling the strings. That's why you have to put these boundaries in place. That's why it's so important. Because you could leave yourself open to being attacked or hurt on a daily basis. And like we were talking about before, we don't flinch as much when the phone rings or anything, because the people who are contacting us are the people who we want in our life, who are positive, who, even if they're having a bad day, there's still a respect and a give and take, and they want us there, we want them there. It's not just random drama for random drama's sake.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was going to say, more boundaries equals less anxiety.
Yes.
Because the more boundaries you set up, the more you can, you have safe spaces. Yeah, so this can make it more likely for you to drink if you don't have boundaries in place. The drinking then becomes your freedom, even though we know it's more like a prison. So, that's like the opposite of freedom.
Yeah.
And a big part of why boundaries are important in sobriety is the space that they take up with other people's abuse and even your own abuse towards yourself, that can then be transformed into a space for hopes and dreams to grow, to become part of your reality.
Yeah.
That's just the truth of that. It might sound a little weird, but that's just what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And something else that I would like to mention is how certain people view freedom, right? So for kids, freedom just means I can do whatever I want all the time, right? And I think the problem is a lot of us as adults, I mean, I'm guilty of this, is still wanting to think that that's freedom.
Yeah.
Because you can be selfish and all these things, but that's not actually what freedom is at all.
Yeah.
Freedom's responsibility, and freedom is, sometimes
making choices.
Yeah, and sometimes doing stuff you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like the adult version of freedom, and the one that is actually freedom. Because the other ones, it's not freedom. It's just, I don't know, it's just selfishness and no responsibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, it's as an adult, it's freedom to choose, freedom to have a choice.
Yeah.
Which it's so incredible to be able to just have a choice that you want. Mm-hmm. Even if it's something hard, like becoming parents, getting a new home, starting over with your career, pushing your body or your mind to new limits in a different way. You get to choose that hard instead of someone pushing a certain hard that they want you to choose.
Yeah. Because then there's usually no passion behind it, but you have that passion that can really, it's just like putting gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
And it's just way more intense, and you can get a lot more done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with talking about this, we want to now talk about how to do boundaries for yourself. And this is actually just as important, if not more important, than when you place boundaries for others. So we want you to set up personal boundaries in a way that helps you get the vision of the life you wanted. And like we've talked about in previous podcasts, it might be something simple as, you know, getting into a job and getting there every day on time. Like, you know, like it can be simple goals, but you can also have big dreams too. And like being able to set up that vision really helps you set up which boundaries matter most.
Yeah, and if you want the best connection with your wife, for example, one boundary to talk about is what do you consider cheating, and what does your partner consider cheating? And this is what my friend was talking about, and me and him were pretty much saying how everyone has a different version of like what cheating is, like emotional cheating or physical. And so you both come to an agreement on what exactly cheating is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you don't break that agreement, but at least you both know like what is cheating, because people can be like, oh, that wasn't really flirting.
Mm-hmm.
Or oh, and not that we have this issue, because
yeah,
it's never really been an issue, but it's a good one to talk about. You know, so
because it's a good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we think it's a good comparison is actually when I was still drinking, because obviously we have different sobriety dates. So when I was still drinking, Josh actually presented it to me as like, when you're drinking, I feel like you're cheating on me with the bottle. Mm-hmm. And that was it for me. That was easily the final straw, because like he put it in a context where I was like, oh my God, I have to stop this right now. I have to do everything I can, because our relationship mattered so much to me. And I could tell when he put it in that words how much it hurt him. And I never wanted to do it again. So, I mean, it sucked hearing it that way, but I'm glad he did say it, because to the two of us, like, cheating's, you know, the end-all be-all, like, we cannot do it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to put it in a context with addiction to be the end-all be-all, because, you know, if you are addicted, you have to find that last straw. And that was it for me when Josh told me, like, yeah, it feels like you're cheating on me when you go to the bottle instead of you go to me. And I just, yeah, I couldn't even believe how big of an impact that had on my view of it, because it was always like I would go to the bottle because it felt good for me. But, and I knew I'd hurt people in the past with it, with my parents, with, you know, my brother, like friends. I knew I'd hurt people. But to put it at such a level for me was just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I've been doing this to all these people, and especially to Josh. So that really hit me in the core. But because of this, we both know that boundaries that you place on yourself are basically a moral code, and it's the way to navigate the world. If you stick to your moral code, others will have a harder time bringing you down. And also, you will have a harder time bringing yourself down, as you will build self-respect as long as you abide by your code.
So yeah, with the cheating, like saying that drinking was, like, I thought that was like cheating,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Well, I did feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I wasn't like trying to make you feel bad or whatever.
Oh, I know.
But I didn't know how much of an impact it actually ever made on you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was like the final straw.
Mm-hmm.
But it really did feel like that.
Well, because I was using that instead of coming to you, and I didn't realize, like,
Yeah,
I was in a way cheating on you.
Yeah, but you couldn't have come to me.
No, I mean, but like emotionally in that way, I was kind of cheating, because when I didn't feel like I could talk to you about something, I would drink, and then I would be a jerk.
Yeah.
So either way, it hurt you. But when you put it in that context, and I really realized the level of it, that's when I was able to like be like, no, I can't do this anymore. Because that was the last thing I wanted to do to you, is cheat on you in any way.
Yeah.
So that really made the biggest difference.
Yeah. And I guess the reason why I said that is because, like when somebody's drinking, and I've done it too, is when you're drinking, nothing else matters besides the drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you're gonna feel like your partner's ignoring you and starting a connection with somebody else, and that is, in our case, that was you were having a connection with
The bottle.
the bottle. And then this can go into other areas too. People can even, like, nowadays, like the phone thing's a huge thing where people are kind of like connected to their phone more than their partner.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I never knew that it was that intense for you. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, we've always had such a strong connection. So when it's altered in some way, we both get upset, obviously.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do anything to compromise that.
No, I didn't. And like I said, like that's when, because we did have a really good connection, and I just didn't want that to be ruined in any way. That was all I needed to hear, because, I've had other boyfriends before Josh. I'm 33 now. Ugh. But like,
You look like you're 27.
Oh, jeez. He's just being nice. But, I've had other boyfriends in the past, but, like, I've never had the support that I've had with Josh. And choosing between Josh and my freedom with the bottle, there wasn't even a comparison, like, if I had to choose one or the other. And when he said, like, it feels like cheating, I was like, oh my God, I'm done. I have to be done. Like, because I didn't want to lose the support I had. Because I knew if I was going to get sober, he was going to be a big part of that journey. Because I tried and failed for 10 years. Like, I tried alone, I tried with sponsors, I tried with other people's support, but I knew he understood me enough that it mattered the most. And he accepted me the most, so I couldn't lose that. I was afraid to lose that. And, it became one of my whys. I have, multiple whys, but not losing you was part of my why. Like, I can't keep drinking if I'm going to keep this. So, that mattered a lot to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like we're talking about, the connection was strong. It's like you need a strong connection to break your connection with alcohol.
Yes. Because,
it, like when you're in addiction, it can feel like alcohol gets you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, no, it did. It did.
And it helps, I don't know. It was like, for me, it was like my buddy, like, and I could, like, tell him stuff and cry, and he was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, didn't judge me.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to find that, like, out in the real world, but it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta start throwing out positivity, and positive people will, start to come towards you and whatnot.
Absolutely. And we just wanted to talk about these boundaries because, we realize, obviously, and we're even still realizing, like, the importance of the boundaries. We're 4 and almost 3 years sober, and we're still trying to piece together what boundaries are best for us, what our limits are, and sometimes we push it to the limit. Like, even, like, with my pregnancy, I'm trying to finish all these things before our baby girl comes, and some days I'm pushing it a little too hard because I'm so used to my old body being able to keep up. Not that I regret it in any single second, like, do not get me wrong. It's just I'm used to being able to keep going even when I'm tired, and I just can't do that anymore. I have to listen to my body. Even that's a boundary for me that I have to, like, cope with. But all these new boundaries are just helping us learn bigger and better and more important things about ourselves. And we just wanted to give that to you guys because having boundaries is your code. Like we said before, it's the code that'll help you with your confidence. It's the code that'll help you with your self-love. It's the code that'll just keep you on the path that you really need to be on to continue long-term sobriety and even short-term sobriety. Because, if I had realized boundaries were part of it in the earlier times when I was trying to get sober, I would have tried to say no sometimes when people were pushing me, and I'm not saying not pushing me to get sober, that was obviously needed to be pushed. I'm talking about when they would just push my buttons after that, and I would let them do it and let them take control, and then after a while, I'd have the fuck it's and eventually go to the bottle because I didn't have control over my own life. So that's why we wanted to talk to you guys about boundaries, because just the importance of it and understanding your limits is so, so important.
All right, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Alternatives to AA. If you would like to contact us directly, please shoot us an email at alternatives2aa2021@gmail.com. We also hope that you continue to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. You can watch us live on YouTube. You can subscribe to us that way as well. You can leave us a 5-star rating and follow us on Spotify. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, we ask that you please leave a rating and an honest review.
We'll see you next week. Bye.